Okay, everyone, let's now get this conversation thrown into the open. The social media has been hot since yesterday when billionaire investor and Microsoft founder Bill Gates made those statements at the special session of the National Economic Council. And everyone on Nigeria's Who's Who book were present there listening to him right inside the presidential villa. Let's bring in economic policy analyst and chief executive officer at Cowrie Asset Management, Johnson Chukwu, to weigh in on this conversation this morning. Good morning, Johnson. It's good to have you on the program via Skype.
Good morning, my pleasure.
Thank you very much. I'm sure you've taken a listen to billionaire Bill Gates' comments, very extensive and robust on the state of Nigeria's economy and where we're investing. Give us your first word on what you heard from him.
Well, I mean, the man stated the facts. These are basic facts we should all be familiar with. But it's good coming from an independent and person who ordinarily has no reason to be political. I mean, from an apolitical point, with less than enough money for in the primary healthcare sector, but we're not also getting enough value for the money we're even putting in there. I mean, that should be a wake-up call for the government.
It should be a wake-up call for the government. But then, well, he didn't say anything that is essentially new. He came through with the numbers. But he made one statement, and I want you to react. He says, Nigeria will thrive when Nigerians thrive.
Well, that's a fact. I mean, if you look at the countries that are developed, what matters most in today's world is not just your per capita income. It's not just the level of fiscal infrastructure you have. Yeah, those are critical resources you need. But what matters most is the quality of human capital. Today, Norway is ranked highest in the global human development index. But let's even look at the fact of the matter, bringing Nigeria's case, for instance. If you look at Nigeria, you look at the history of Nigeria's economic development, which is why he said Nigeria will thrive if Nigeria thrive. Look at the quality of human capital. You realize that a lot of the assets that we inherited from the Europeans when they were living, we couldn't manage them because we didn't have the quality of human capital to manage them. We couldn't manage the rail lines, they collapsed. The rail system collapsed. We couldn't manage the airways. We couldn't even manage the companies because we didn't have the competence at that time they left to do that. Unfortunately, we've not built enough internal human capital competence to bridge that, despite our huge population. We are leaving the critical elements of human capital development without focusing on it. I mean, Mr. Gates told us about the critical element issue of from ground zero, you look at the quality of primary health care. Today, Nigeria ranks 4th worst country to give birth for a woman. We are only better than countries like Cameroon, Central African Republic, and Chad in terms of maternal mortality rate. In terms of infant mortality rate, we rank the 3rd worst country in the world because we have the infant mortality rate of 1 in 5. That's for every 5 children that are born in Nigeria, you lose 1. So these are facts that we must ask ourselves, how do we need to address? And unfortunately for us, it's worsening. I mean, it was better in 1990, and today we are looking at a worse situation, which means something has, there's a disconnect.
Let me also refer you a little bit to part of what billionaire Gates says. And he says some of the funding that Nigeria wants from multilateral institutions like the World Bank are not coming in because they see that we're not spending on critical human capital development. Does that seem to have been an answer to the question some of us have been asking? Why is it difficult for Nigeria to get critical funding from outside, even as the current administration is trying, that we don't get such money pouring in around the world because they're looking at us and they're saying, look, it doesn't look like these guys know what they're doing?
Yes, I refer you to a few things that are germane. Look at the issue of assessing the universal primary education funding. A lot of state governments in Nigeria cannot access their universal education funding because they cannot provide a counterpart funding. Similarly, that's also what applies to the healthcare. A lot of instances, where the donor agencies or international bodies are acting to provide a counterpart funding, show commitment, show that you are interested in your people's welfare. We don't see that. So how are they going to come in and fund healthcare, education, when our own local government, I mean, when I mean local government, I mean the state and the state and local federal government are not providing counterpart funding. In a lot of instances, they want the home countries or home governments to be part of the funding process, to have a stake in the welfare of their people. And where our governments are unable to provide the funding, it simply means they are not prioritizing appropriately. And that's why you can attract some of these funds, because a lot of the funds require counterpart funding. And our local governments, when I mean, like I said, when I mean local government, I'm referring to state government, local government, and federal government are not providing the counterpart funding. That's why we can't access some of them, because we're not showing commitment. We're not showing, and then when they ask you, let's see value for money. If we're going to give you this money and you're bringing your counterpart funding, we want to measure the results of that investment over a period of time. They're not seeing that. And some challenges we have.
Mr. Chukwu, hasn't the government done some reasonable, and I'm very careful how I put it out there in terms of some funding? In the last 2-3 years, at least under the Buhari's administration, we've seen media reports of how billions and billions and billions and billions of naira of national health care insurance program has been stolen or mismanaged by those who are at the top of managing them. In the education sector, for example, we've heard of massive fraud, corrupt practices in which some of these education fund, trust fund, whatever, has gone through the windows.
Well, when we look at this, we look at the country as a going concern. I'm not just talking about a single government. You see, the reality of what we've seen so far is that in spite of whatever amount we have voted for these critical sectors, education, healthcare, it's either they're not getting into the loop of where they'll be useful, with that they are stolen before they get to that point, or they don't even get disbursed for that purpose. Like Bill Gates said, he said he has invested about $1 billion into Nigeria's healthcare system, but he does not think we have, he cannot see the full value of that $1 billion. And that is an external grant provider who has the will and welfare of Nigerians at heart, who has left you guys to come and support us to improve on some of the critical, weak health segments. And he's saying that even his own stance, he's not getting enough value. He's not seeing a full value for the amount he has put in. So talking of the government. And I want to remind us of one of the instances that my discussion has nothing to do with which government is in power or whatever. We have to look at what channel is the most effective to implement some of the government's initiatives. And a critical example I always come to mind to me is the case of former governor of Anambra State, Pt.1. He said he had to transfer the schools to the churches because the churches seem to have better moral standard, better governance standard, so as to improve the quality of education in Anambra. And over a period of time, he did achieve that improvement. We need to ask ourselves, who should manage the primary health care system? Is it the local government? Are they effective in managing it? Should it be at the state government level? Or should it be a joint venture arrangement between the community where the primary health care are situated and the government?